Hey, it's Saul Overman. Tonight we're going to be doing another video on the series we've been doing on the Lee Loader loading system. And tonight we're going to go ahead and load a 38 special cartridge. We're going to go through all the steps required. First I want to kind of go through how I've got my equipment and supplies laid out here before we start. First thing I have here is a data sheet that I've made that shows the load I'm going to be using. We're going to be using unique powder. I'm using a 4.4 grain load over 158 grain semi-wide cutter bullet. I have my powder in a non-sparking, non-static vessel here. This is a marble mortar. I think these work really well for that. You want to avoid anything that's a really dense plastic that can leave a static charge in a spark. You want to avoid anything that's any kind of ferrous metal that can make a spark. Brass vessels are okay. I like these stone ones. I think are the best. I have my scale set up over here. I don't have it over here with me because this is the table we're going to be doing our pounding on, and I don't want the harsh vibrations from the pounding and the hammering the cases in to damage the scale. So that's why we have it isolated back over here. I've got all my all the tools required laid out here from the Lee Loader kit. I have my chamfering tool in case we need to chamfer any of the case necks, caliper. For measuring, also on my card, I have the data for the maximum overall case length and the maximum overall loaded length for the cartridge, and I do measure both the cases and the finished cartridges every time. Nice powder funnel, our powder measure kit, which I've already looked up the Alliant unique powder. According to the chart, the 0.5 cc dipper will throw 4.6 grains of the unique. My experience is that it won't. It'll only throw about 4.2 grains unless you dig in, and then there's a risk that you've actually got more than 4.6 in here. A simple push like this through, like the directions say, my experience will only throw about approximately 4.2 grains of this. So we're going to be measuring every charge, which is my normal procedure that I normally do with this. The lid of the kits makes a handy container for putting your other supplies, your primers, and your bullets. I recommend not putting out more primers than what you can use in any one sitting, or that you know that you're going to be able to load up, because they're really hard to get back into the little boxes they come out of. And they need to be stored back in their cases or used, one or the other. I think that's everything, so let's get started here. We're going to start by de-priming a case. There's my case here. I've already measured it to see that it is under the maximum overall case length. For a fired case is 1.155 inches. This one's measured in at 1.135, so it's well under. It's always a good idea to remember to turn these off. I want to show the calipers. I use these cheap $20 digital calipers. I find that they're very accurate. They hold their zero. They're good price on them. Much easier and safer to read than a dial type caliper. They do wear out after a while, and they go through batteries, but I still prefer them over the old-fashioned kind. So it's a good idea to remember to turn it off when you put it down, because it'll go through the battery pretty fast if you don't. Alright, so let's get started with the de-priming. These de-priming, decapping chambers can be used two ways. They can be used with the large hole facing up, and you can de-prime one case that way, and then you'll have to move it and discard that primer. Or you can use it with the small hole facing up, and you can actually fill that area there with about 10 primers before you have to dump it. The problem with using it this way is you want to make sure that your primer is exactly lined up over that hole, or you can break your de-priming pin in the Lee Loader kit. And here's the de-priming pin, I'll show that. And these do break. If they break, it's not a huge deal. You can grind a nail down, you can accomplish the same thing, and Lee will send you another one if you tell them you've broken that. So let's go ahead and de-prime this. I want to first feel for the primer cup with the pin and make sure that that's seated in there, so that when I hit it with the hammer I don't break the pin. Just a little tap it out, You can see it's out, and there's my spent primer there. And don't let that thing go too far. You're going to need it again. All right, so here we've got our die body. The funnel end is the end that the powder goes in. When you're sizing the cases, they go in the flat end. We're going to put a little lube on our fingers, rub a generous amount on the case, insert the case, give it a little push, get it to go as far as you can in there, give it a little tap with the hammer. You can see that's quite a bit of vibration. That's why I wouldn't want the scale sitting over here on this table while I was doing that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to prime this case. I'm going to take a primer, a fresh one, and set it over the primer pin area in the priming base. And for this part of the operation, it's time to put on some safety glasses. I've probably done a few thousand rounds, and I think twice I've had primers go off. Didn't hurt it. Put a little black stuff on my hand, and that was it. Usually the cases of a primer going off is something you do wrong, such as trying to prime an already primed case. That's about guaranteed to make one of them go off. Safety glasses, good idea. We're going to take, you can see, I want to show that I have that case flush into the die body. Without using lubricant or a good lubricant, it's harder to achieve that, where it's flush in the bottom of that. That's what you want. So that case has been fully resized now. Full length resized. So I'm going to place the die body with the shell in it over the capper with the cap in it. Give it a little tap. Now you can see, if you can see that or not, it's not quite seated. This is one of the operations of this that takes a little bit of practice, and you want it somewhere. The center of this table has a little too much give for this operation. You want something really firm so that you can feel that primer seep down in there. I've got a little oak stump that I use that works good for this. Just gives something a little more solid for it to for the bottom of that to bear on when I hit it. And you can feel when you're getting in there. Now you can see that is flush. The primer is flush in the case. You don't want to go too deep with the primer, or you'll have trouble with your firing pin not reaching it, and you'll have light primer strikes. That's probably one of the more difficult things about getting used to the Lee loaders, is seating the primers and making sure that they are seated nice and flush, not too deep, not too shallow. Move that out of the way a little bit. Now, at this point in time, we can drive the primed case out of the die body, and we'll use our large opening on our decapper and the supplied rod. Just give it a little tap, pop right out of there. You can see there it is. Get the excess grease off of it, and we'll put it back in there. Now, at this stage, I'm going to go ahead and charge this case. What I normally do is I will have all my prime cases in the loading block, and then as I prime them and size them, I'll put them in the block upside down. And then as I get ready to charge it, bring it out, turn it over, and charge it. So in the end, I've got all these spots filled with primed, sized, and charged cases. And then at that point, I can visually inspect with a flashlight down in each case to make sure each case is charged and each case is not double charged. So, let's move ahead here. We got our primed case. We'll show you how to charge it. I have the scale locked at 4.4 grains. So I'm going to drag my dipper through so you can see. Show you that again. Drag it through, and we're going to weigh that charge. And this should come in a little bit less than the 4.4 grains. Want to make sure your scale's not bound. That one was pretty heaping full. It got pretty close to the 4.4. But now remember, according to the Lee chart, that was supposed to be 4.6. But it's not. This is the point where it gets a little bit tricky. Takes a little practice. Get some powder in the dipper. Give it a little tap. And watch. And that time did it perfect. Came right up to the level mark. If it goes over and you blow the marker past the center, don't try to knock a little powder out of the pan. Take the pan, dump it back into your powder reserve, and start over. Accuracy counts. Now, the top of the die body has a little funnel apparatus to make it easier to charge the cases. It still doesn't work nearly as well as using a powder funnel. So, powder funnel just sits over it like that. Dump the powder in, like so. Now we have a sized, primed, and charged case, and we're ready for bullet seating. The bullet seater is this device here. It locks with this. Once you establish your depth by turning this rod in and out, it locks with this knurled wheel. So you better to start a little short and then extend it and then lock it when you achieve the proper depth. These 158 grain semi-wide cutters have a crimping groove, so the idea is to get the top of the case to come right to the crimping groove and still be under the maximum overall length. So drop the bullet in there. The bullet seating tool goes on top of that. Get over the edge here. I can get a little bit firmer. Tapping on there. Give it a little tap to the bottom and take a look at it. A lot of times you'll get a little sliver of lead around the case mouth. Scrape that off with your fingernail. And take a look at it, and it looks like that adjustment's right on. Make sure that your locking wheel is turned down so you can keep that depth. You take the die body, invert it so that the funnel shaped end is over the case mouth. Give it a little tap and then crimps it. Now we can take a measurement of it, and I'm getting 1.450. The maximum overall length of a loaded 38 special is 1.155, so we're well under that. This should fit in any normal normal revolver with a normal chamber size, cylinder size. It worked just fine, and that's it. It's a loaded cartridge. So you can see, even with all the talking and explaining I did with this, it didn't take but a couple of minutes to turn out this loaded cartridge. And once you get your system going, everything laid out the way you want it, even with weighing and measuring every cartridge, you should be able to turn out one about every minute. Which, 60 cartridges an hour. It's not too bad a rate, really. So that's it. If anybody has any questions or anything, or any suggestions further, I'm certainly willing to listen to them, answer questions, or entertain any suggestions. I appreciate you all watching. Saul Oberman saying good night.